Hello, movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. So, a little announcement kind of before we jump into what today's episode is going to be. I kind of, for the sake of transparency, I guess, or honesty, wanted to tell everyone who listens that I will not be doing a review on Wonka. I know that just came out, I think, today, recently. And I'm sure that there are a ton of people reviewing it. I'm sure that everyone is loving it. I don't want to review it specifically because I don't think that it's fair if I do. I know already that I'm going to hate it because it's a musical and I don't get along with musicals very much. And I don't think it's fair to everyone that listens to the podcast to review something knowing, like, to go in with that bias of knowing that I'm not going to like it and then give you guys a review about how much I don't like it. Like, that just doesn't seem like something that is, fair to the listeners to have to go through that. So I am going to pass this one off and just sort of say, if you are interested in hearing about Wonka, I hear great things about it. I hear people are really loving it. So I'm sure that you will be able to find someone on YouTube or out in the podcast community that reviews movies that will tell you kind of all about it and whether or not you should watch it or not. But I just won't be doing it because I think I was talking to a friend the other day and explained it kind of perfectly that I like movies in which there might be singing, but I don't like singing in which there might sometimes be movie. And I think that Wonka is singing from the very beginning to the very end, and my brain just can't handle it. I don't mind a couple of songs. I like some things that have songs in it. Wonka, I think, is just too much for me. So I will be skipping that one. And in the interim, instead, we are going to talk about crime. And I don't mean crime in general or true crime. I am talking about the television show Crime. It is a BBC series, I think, or at least it is a UK series for surezies. It stars Ray Scott, Joanna Vanderham, Jamie Sivis. I apologize if that's not the way that you pronounce his last name, Jamie's last name. I'm not sure, but a lot of great people in this show. I think the second season is coming out June of next year. And the reason that I started watching this and wanted to catch up before season 2 dropped is that Ray Scott actually joined the cast of Vigil, which you guys all know that I really loved. Vigil with Saran Jones. The second season of that has already dropped. I've already watched the first 3 episodes. And if you guys are not watching Vigil, like, come on now. Come on. What are we doing? I love the second season, but I was a little bit sad, honestly, that in Vigil, at least, Ray Scott is in it, but I was expecting him to kind of be a bigger part of it, and he isn't. He isn't in the show that often. And again, it's only the first 3 episodes, I think, that have dropped so far. So I wanted some Ray Scott, like, I needed a fix. So I went and started to watch Crime. I made it the entire way through the first season, which in the UK, their seasons are much shorter. I mean, not by too much now, I feel like. A lot of the seasons in the United States are like 8 to 10 episodes, sometimes a little bit more than that. But typically in the UK, the seasons are like 6 episodes. So it's really easy to get through them pretty quickly in like a weekend or a couple of days. And Crime, I have to say, sort of struck me as a bit odd. It's not the typical like crime show. No pun intended, or like, I guess that's not really a pun, but you get what I'm saying. It's not the typical one that I am used to out of the UK. Like, yes, with UK like cop dramas or crime dramas, typically there's always like the crime and stuff happening. It's like a murder mystery or whatever. And I think I mentioned it in like Vigil that typically whoever the head cop is, they're always struggling with something. They always have this like really haunting backstory that you kind of wheedle out through the rest of the episodes, like while they're hunting for a killer. And there's always kind of a connection there. But with crime, I was actually sort of shocked, not only with how dark they went with like his Dougray Scott, obviously being like the main detective or whatever in the show, Ray Lennox, with how dark his backstory was, but how dark and sort of gray area his character was in the first place, and how gray area a lot of the cops in this show are was a little surprising to me. And I will note, like, I'm not sure if any of my listeners in the UK, I'm assuming that this is not an issue with any of you, but I will note that a lot of what they say, I honestly have no idea what they are saying. Like, I don't know if it's Scots English, a lot of it, or if it's just Scottish slang or English slang. I have no idea what's happening. So like through some of the show, I just go on what's going on and not so much by what they're saying, because I don't like a lot of the interaction kind of between the character of Ray and the character of D.I. Dookie Gillum. I have no Dookie, forget it. Anything that comes out of his mouth, I'm like, what? I need to Google it. I need like a translator for this television series. I think that I am pretty good with like foreign TV shows and picking up accents and things, but a lot of crime isn't necessarily what I would consider an accent, but they use a lot of words that I am not terribly familiar with, being a pretty boring American. So, but I do really love it. I just was sort of surprised that this one doesn't follow, like, yes, they are solving a crime, but there is a lot more interaction, I guess, with the main character, like with Dougray Scott's character, a lot more around his personal, like what's going on with him personally, and a lot more going on with like his family and all of that stuff than there is actually solving a murder. So I found that pretty interesting, that it wasn't sort of the typical type thing, because like vigil and crime, I would say, are two different sides of the same coin, where vigil very clearly is about the case being solved, and then there's just like extra pieces involved in that. And I would say crime is a lot more about Dougray Scott's character of Ray, at least in the first season, and a lot less about like solving a particular crime. But I definitely enjoy it. I am looking forward to the second season, and I am hoping like that Dougray stays in Vigil. Although I hear, or I assume, that he is the bad guy in Vigil. I don't know though, because he doesn't seem to be so far in the first 3 episodes. So we'll see. But I am hoping that he can stay onto Vigil, so I can just like bounce back and forth between watching him in Vigil and watching him in crime, like alternating months, you know, just have like 6 episodes in the summer and 6 episodes in the fall. But we'll see how that goes. But if you guys have not started watching crime yet, I would highly recommend. You will have to let me know what you think if you have watched this one. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.